Be part of the peace movement. Share this episode using hashtag the Great Disarmament and download the free peace resource guide at aviskalfsbeek.com/peace guide. The Great Disarmament, the Great Disfarmament, Part 14 of Future Retold. Hi friends, I'm Avis Kalfsbeek, author, podcast host, and peace storyteller. This is The Great Disarmament, the Great Disfarmament, a podcast tracing the parallel histories of how we learn to kill and how we might stop. You've joined us in moments that span from compost to chemical warfare, spears to drones, and treaties to seeds. Now we come together one last time to reflect, reframe, and reclaim a future not yet written. Remember when I told you the Great Disarmament had already begun at the beginning of this series? I also asked you at the beginning and midway through if you laughed at that. Here on the far side of that journey, I hope that if you're not fully sold that the Great Disarmament is underway, you at least have a curiosity to peel under the layers of media and political fear to see what types of peace are actually unfolding. Since this is the last episode in the series, I want to say clearly, the Great Disarmament is real. It isn't perfect, it does not always make headlines, but it is happening, manifest in choices and communities, in soil and stories. This episode is called A Future Retold because that is exactly what we've done here. We have retold the past so we can reimagine our future. Let's walk back through where we've been. We started with the Great Disfarmament, the war on soil. We began in the field. Before guns, there were sticks. Before pesticides, compost. We mapped how the logic that said control feeds life bred death instead. From prehistoric slash and burn to 20th century chemical booms, we heard voices who resisted. Rachel Carson listening to ecological silence before we did, exposing the chemical lies beneath modern agriculture, the ancient farmer of Shurupak warning across millennia not to destroy the land, William Blake imagining spiritual resistance in the face of industrial conquest, Sir Albert Howard advocating compost and ecological balance before it was mainstream, and Winona LaDuke calling for indigenous sovereignty and seed rematriation. These ideas were echoed in literature of the era. The Epic of Gilgamesh warning against ecological hubris and irreversible extraction. The Chimney Sweeper by William Blake, a haunting image of innocence sacrificed to empire. All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque, echoing the shared trauma of both trench warfare and industrial-scale death. The Man Who Fed the World, a biography of Norman Borlaug revealing the unintended consequences of agricultural heroism. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, offering a vision of relationship over domination, reciprocity over extraction, reminding us that the land is kin, not a battlefield. Next, we traveled the Great Disarmament, the war on each other. We turned to weapons. We traced the arc from spears to drones, tribal conflicts to nuclear standoffs, hysterical nationalism to stories of enough. We honored those who spoke peace in their time, the Bhagavad Gita offering a spiritual reckoning with violence, duty, and disarmament, William Penn imagining a peaceable kingdom where power bowed to conscience, Bertrand Russell, who went to prison for resisting war and nuclear escalation, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. naming America's addiction to violence, Howard Zinn reminding us that shame belongs to systems, not soldiers, and a modern chorus, Malala Yousafzai, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Greg Boyle, and Adrienne Maree Brown, whose words became seeds of resistance. We also reflected on the literary mirrors of their time, works that confronted war, imagined peace, and asked what it means to be human in the face of destruction. Utopia by Thomas More and the Quaker Peace Testimony of 1660, envisioning justice without conquest. The war poetry of Wilfred Owen, and The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, chronicling the psychic wreckage of a world of war. Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, a nonlinear, absurdist reckoning with the trauma of firebombing and the myth of justified war. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, a fierce moral call to confront the violence embedded in racism and American exceptionalism. Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown, a guide to reshaping power and resistance through relationships, imagination, and nonlinear growth. And we discovered that disarmament is not just diplomatic, it is personal, local, and daily. Where we are now. Today we inhabit a conflicted world. More than 12,000 nuclear warheads remain, with humanity closer to midnight than ever, 89 seconds according to the Doomsday Clock. That clock was first set at 7 minutes to midnight in 1947, warning us then of nuclear peril. Now it reminds us how fragile our peace remains. Yet this is also a world where guns become garden tools, former combatants become peace builders, indigenous stewardship rises again, youth lead, survivors speak, artists show us what's beautiful. We are not at the end, and we are not at the beginning. We are the continuation of this story. This is the Great Disarmament, a path toward less weaponry, toward enough, toward a future we co-create. The clock that tells no time. But one measures danger. Let's honor a group of peace warriors in this final episode of the Great Disarmament. Since 1947, a collective of atomic scientists, many of them veterans of the Manhattan Project, have maintained a symbolic timepiece known as the Doomsday Clock. Each year, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists sets its hands closer to or farther from midnight, reflecting how near humanity is to existential catastrophe. First nuclear war, later joined by climate change, pandemics, and AI-driven threats. This isn't a metaphor dreamed up by a poet or a politician. It's a tool of public science communication invented by artists and physicists together, including Martil Langsdorff, who painted the original image, and her husband Alexander Langsdorff Jr., one of the Manhattan Project scientists who later opposed nuclear escalation. Over the decades, the Bulletin's Science and Security Board and its sponsors have included some of the most influential thinkers of the 20th and 21st centuries. While any list will be incomplete, some of the names who helped shape its moral and scientific weight include Albert Einstein, whose 1946 letter helped launch the Bulletin; Leo Szilard, co-founder of the Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists; Rachel Bronson, current president and CEO of the Bulletin; Stephen Hawking, who contributed to discussions on global catastrophic risk; John Holdren, former U.S. President Science Advisor; Pervez Hoodbhoy, Pakistani physicist and disarmament advocate; Sharon Squassoni, arms control expert and nuclear policy leader; Lynn Eden, scholar of nuclear command systems and overkill; Asha George, expert on biological threats; Herbert York, physicist and arms control pioneer; Zia Mayan, physicist and activist working on South Asian nuclear security; and many more ethicists, artists, students, and journalists who've served quietly and bravely behind the scenes. The clock has never been about doom for doom's sake. It's about accountability, urgency, and possibility, and yet it hasn't been without controversy. Some critics argue that it oversimplifies complex geopolitical risks into a single dramatic image. Others claim it has become political or overly symbolic, lacking measurable methodology. But its defenders insist the point is not precision. The point is to make danger visible, to capture public imagination where statistics fall short. And in that sense, it certainly works. In 1991, after the signing of the START 1 treaty and the end of the Cold War, the clock was set back to 17 minutes before midnight, the farthest it's ever been. Today, it stands at 89 seconds, not because we're doomed, but because we've been warned. And warnings, if taken seriously, can lead to peace. But even this clock has faced attempts to be silenced. It's too complex, they say. Leave it to the experts. But do you see how that argument has always worked to shut down visionaries, to cut wise people off at the knees? That's been the refrain of power since time began. It's too hard. It's too late. It's not your place. But the truth is, it is as simple as 89 seconds to midnight. Peace is not a gimmick, a meme, or a viral slogan. Even the hashtag, the Great Disarmament, a mark of our times, is only a signpost, like a smoke signal or a wayfinding cairn. There are many such signals, and they are real. Peace, however, is a deeper truth. It is life reclaiming itself from the ruins of violence. In the spirit of the Zulu women's resistance, you strike a woman, you strike rock. That is the resilience we carry. Greta Thunberg says, we cannot have climate justice without social justice, because the reason I'm a climate activist is not because I want to protect trees. I care about human and planetary well-being, and those are deeply and morally interlinked. Mahatma Gandhi said during the escalating crisis of colonial rule in India in 1931, peace will not come out of a clash of arms, but out of justice lived and done by unarmed nations in the face of odds. What you can do. You don't need to revolutionize the world today. Just start with one quiet act. Lay down one weapon in your life, perhaps a reaction, a fear, a belief, or a product. Share your story. Use hashtag the Great Disarmament. Write a letter to your neighbors, your school board, your state. Ask them, how are we investing in peace and how can I help? Tomorrow, do it again. Every ending leaves echoes. Let this one ripple. Say it. I believe in the Great Disarmament. Type it. Hashtag the Great Disarmament. Ask it, what can I lay down today so something else can grow? From soil to the soul, thank you for being part of this journey with me. Regarding that clock, midnight will come, or it won't. In either case, the earth will go on and rejuvenate in its spectacular regenerative power. But the former scenario, if midnight comes, is a reality of unfathomable pain and suffering. The unfathomable pain and suffering that happened in wars past and that are happening right now. That is how we've become so tragically numb. The killing must stop. The truth of peace has never left. The Great Disarmament is underway. We envision a world where killing fades out of our collective memory like a flat earth, cannibalism, and witch burning, because peace became real. Because peace is real. While the Doomsday Clock was full of wisdom, perhaps the image that should have been broadcast was this: a clock with hands, but no numbers. A clock with a name, the Peace Clock, and the words, it's peace o'clock somewhere. It's peace o'clock here. Peace is here. Hashtag the Great Disarmament. That wraps up this episode of Peace is Here. Will you please take a moment to subscribe and share it with a friend? Subscribing helps others discover peaceful, independent storytelling, and it means a lot to me. I'm Avis Kalfsbeek, author of the Pedro the Water Dog Saves the Planet series, eco-adventure novellas for readers who care about environmental justice, joy, and saving the world one story at a time. You can learn more at aviskalfsbeek.com. Book 6, Monomutante, is now available at all major online retailers, or if you'd like to support my book directly, you can get the ebook at aviskalfsbeek.com/mono-mutante. It's a wild satirical ride through food, farming, and the messiness of recovery. When you subscribe to my list, you'll also be the first to hear about my next book, Bulletproof, which asks, what in the world are we going to do about guns? A link to subscribe is in the show notes. From October 18th to November 8th, 2025, I'm running a live Kickstarter campaign. I'd be so grateful if you'd visit aviskalfsbeek.com/Kickstarter to get notified. I'm creating a companion field journal for Book 1, One More Year, called Peace Stuff Primer, along with a stage play version of the book. I can't wait to share it with you. This episode was human narrated by me with the help of AI, which has promised to let me know if it ever makes something up. So far, no confessions, but if you think I've missed something or if you just want to say hello, I'd love to hear from you. Podcast music is by Javier Peque Rodriguez. You'll find links to his music on Spotify and Bandcamp in the show notes. I'm Avis Kalfsbeek. Thank you again. Until next time, listen for the peace.